Our second segment today hits home thanks to our friend and realtor, Stacey Porter with eXp Realty. Welcome to the show, Stacey.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks for having me.
We are so glad to have you. So obviously you play a really big role in helping citizens buy and sell their homes. And this can be a wonderful and exciting experience, but maybe sometimes a little confusing and frustrating. So it's always important to work with a trusted realtor who can not only walk you through that process, but maybe even hold your hand along the way.
Absolutely.
But you're not going to, you're going even further by offering a hands-on learning experience for first-time home sellers. Let's talk about that. It's a really exciting workshop.
Yeah, we're so pumped about it. One of the things I think we see a lot in the real estate business, especially in our market, is first-time home buyers, seminars and workshops. There's a lot of education, and that's very important. Mm-hmm. It is, again, a confusing process. It's very in-depth. There are legally binding contracts involved, so you want to make sure you protect yourself. But what we don't hear a lot about and what there's not a lot of education on is first-time home sellers. And that doesn't just mean someone who's lived in a house and never sold. It could also mean someone who hasn't sold in a long time.
Sure.
Or in a market like we have now.
Right, with everything changing, technology, I mean, things change in a blink of an eye, much less 10 years ago when I bought my home.
Right, and when we talk about first-time home buyers, even, those government loan programs recognize if you haven't owned a house in 3 years, you're first timer again.
No kidding.
Right, yes.
Huh, that's interesting.
So we really thought about what it looks like for home sellers. And very recently, I think with a lot of my clients and a lot of my friends, I think too, I'm at the age where people are inheriting their grandparents' house.
Big point,
and
yeah.
they don't know what to do with it, or their parents are downsizing, and they don't know quite how to handle all those moving pieces. Again, they've lived in their first home since they bought it. They thought it was their forever dream home, and situations have changed, and now they're moving or upsizing. They're called move-up buyers. But truly, they haven't been through that process from that side. And whether they had an amazing experience when they bought their home or a not-so-great experience, that kind of shades their next experience.
Definitely.
And what they want to do and how they want to move forward. So they've never seen that side of the table. And there's even more moving pieces to the sell side and more ways that are different rules and different ways you can mess it up if you're not, really careful and have educated yourself.
Right. What are some of the things that they're going to go over? Like, what's like the first thing when I walk into this workshop that you want to really touch first on?
The first thing that I want to touch on is sort of a timeline of what this process looks like. I think about my Shani Poo, my nephew, my kid, and when he went to school, the teacher said, he always asks, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? The whole day, he's like, what's next?
Hey, as someone who lives on a deadline, I appreciate that.
Yes.
So
That's what I want. I tell my clients all the time, education is super important with this. And so I want to make sure you're educated. I also want to make sure you feel so good with this process that when it's time to jump, to press that button, there's no fear. You know what the documents say. We went over it. You know what comes next and after that. So we're going to front load everything up front so you know exactly what's happening the whole way. And that helps, too, when a problem comes up. Because if there weren't problems in this process, I wouldn't have a job, right? That's my job, to fix problems. And so I think being really well prepared and that education piece of we're going to do this step by step is where I want to start so that people have an understanding of what comes next and how I can be prepared for that.
Right. And that timeline's interesting because, we're coming out of a time where houses were selling very, very quickly.
Yes.
And maybe they're not as much anymore, but they're obviously still selling. That's not really the question. But, has that timeline sort of expanded compared to recent years, do you think? From start to finish?
A little bit. Not for every house, not for every buyer or seller.
Sure.
But we're still seeing houses go. We're still walking into houses and telling our buyers, hey, we've been here for 20 minutes. You have to decide right now. And if they don't understand the contract or the process, that's really, really scary. Same thing for home sellers. Sometimes you may have a property that's on the market for a little bit longer, a couple weeks or even longer, and you need to be prepared for that. That it might not sell the first day.
That's a really interesting point because, I see houses still in my neighborhood today that they go up for sale and then they're pending, like a week later. So it's kind of amazing. But actually, the house that was next to us was on sale for over a year in the middle of when things were supposed to be selling so quickly. And that was curious. And we were always kind of wondering, what's up with that. And typically, it was the homeowners not wanting to make the changes that were required or things like that. But it was just sort of fascinating to see the difference that could happen. And so your expertise is just absolutely invaluable to making sure that those home sellers and home buyers aren't totally lost in the thick of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just really being prepared for any contingencies, any crap moments.
Yeah, expletive.
Yes. Anything like that, I think it just makes it more fun and an easier process all along, even when things go south or go wrong. If you know what's coming, if you know what needs to be done to solve it, it just makes it better for everyone involved.
Absolutely. And just that point going back to, if you haven't sold your house in 3 years, that is such an interesting concept, I guess, because most of us tend to try and live in our houses for more than that.
Right.
So, and like you said, you are starting over to some degree, so you do need that experience. So, listeners, if you're walking into the workshop, you want to know more, when are these taking place? Because they're coming up pretty soon.
Yes. So we're doing them all over the valley.
Cool.
So be sure to check our Facebook page, Instagram, and we're putting out more information. We're doing several in September, October, and even into November. So if you can't make one evening or one Saturday, there'll be another one coming up. And the really cool thing is, if you're able to RSVP, we have some special things we're going to bring that night to make sure there's a lot of value for you coming to one of the workshops. One of the things that we're putting together for each individual homeowner is you hear them called HERS, but it's a home equity report, and it's going to be specific to that homeowner's property.
Oh, interesting.
So we're able to pull a lot of data based on past sales, based on public information, tax records. So when someone signs up for the seminar, when they come, they will get a bounded
Wow.
kind of program book that is specific to their home.
Wow.
And then we're also including what's called a net sheet. And so another big thing I think that sometimes people don't understand is all the fees, all the things that come out of that bottom line. So we're going to make that a worksheet so we can work with them to fill in those things that come out of the seller's proceeds when they sell
That's really
a house.
excellent education.
Yeah.
And it sounds like your packet is something that maybe a homeowner might want to try and put together but doesn't know how. So it sounds like you've done a lot of the grunt work for them. That's really cool.
There's a lot of market research in there, a lot of neighborhood research in there, and a lot of comparative analysis to other homes in the market that have sold. And so we can really start to drill down into what it will really look like for them.
Gosh, I'm not selling my house, but I really I want you to do the packet for me.
Yes, you got it.
That's so cool. And so in thinking about, what else they can enjoy, you've talked about that home equity report and the sheets, talking about important topics. So do you mind sharing a couple of topics that, they can enjoy?
So one of the things that we hear a lot of times is people want to make, improvements, or they're doing things to their home. And it's not always the stuff that's going to get them their money back.
Interesting.
And so we're going to bring in some industry leaders in our area, some local leaders, to talk about some of those things. We're going to look at some trends in the market of, do I paint my cabinets and change the hardware, or do I put a new front porch on, things like that. What in the area is helping homeowners sell faster, get more exposure, and get their money's worth out of it.
That's cool, because it's so much more than curbside appeal. I mean,
Right.
curbside is obviously incredibly important from the first view, but like when you step inside, what's going to capture that person's attention to buy it?
The other thing that we've done some research on and that we try to get in front of is home inspections. So
Big one.
We've talked a lot about what we see in every home inspection. So when you're a home seller and someone comes in to do an inspection on your home, they have to list a lot of things that maybe aren't a big deal, but sometimes they are. And when a buyer gets that report back and it has 27 items on it, they freak out.
Yeah, looks like a lot.
Right. So any of those things you can get in front of that makes that list a little shorter. Maybe we get it down to 11. We're going to talk about those. For example, on almost every inspection report I've seen, there's an inoperable light switch, which 99% of the time is a bad light bulb.
No kidding.
Yes.
That's funny.
And so think about all those that you could knock out if you just went around and made sure every light bulb in your house worked.
And that's so simple and a cheap fix. I mean,
Every time.
that's
There's
smart.
one every time. And sometimes it's light switches. I know in my house we have these panels with like 4 or 5. I don't know what they all go
Right,
to.
who knows?
But if you could figure all that out,
You're
too,
that Monica from Friends episode.
Right,
Like, what
yes.
does that button go to? Yeah.
So if you can figure that stuff out, that's one less thing too. We see a lot of loose toilets. I mean,
I'm not surprised. I mean, that makes sense because,
tighten your toilets, that sort of thing. So little things like that you wouldn't think of, I wouldn't have thought of those. I would be like, all right, come in, we've taken really great care of our house. Come on over.
Right.
But you forget that back porch light is out. And
Yeah.
they're not going to change the light bulb for you. So little things like that to make that process go easier when you get there.
That's interesting. In terms of, real quick, this is not at all what we've discussed, but in thinking about your setup when someone comes into your home to look at it as their own home, the furniture, the things like that, are you recommending that the homeowner get everything out or buy new furniture or, setting it up in the feng shui, making sure that it's, walkable and things like that?
So there's some tricks to that too, right? So I say all the time, and myself included, people do not have vision. Right? So they're not.
I got a Pinterest board. That's what I got. So, yeah, totally.
So I wish I did. My husband has vision. I do not. So he can see past things and whatever. And you really want people to see themselves living in your home. So sometimes if you have really huge furniture or a lot of furniture, we may talk about taking some of it out. But we still want to have some furniture in there so people can judge how big the rooms are and so that they can see themselves there.
Sure.
So we'll talk about a little bit of that. And people, I think, worry sometimes about clutter, and that's a big deal. Or if they have to show the house in the middle of the day and their kid didn't put their shoes up and the laundry's over there. And for me, I'm less worried about that stuff, and I think the devil's in the details, right? So if there's a book bag over there and some shoes over there and the mail's on the counter, I'm not worried about that. But what I am going to notice is if your switch plates are clean or there's lots of fingerprints on all the windows or those kinds of things. Is your sink clean?
That's a good point. I guess because, as a prospective buyer, I know that somebody lives there, and it's almost like I can see my kids' shoes there in the corner.
Exactly.
So to me, that makes sense. But that's so interesting that you're looking at the window fingerprints.
Right.
What a small detail that goes a long way.
Right. We don't notice our own dirt.
No, you're right. You're
but
correct.
We do notice other people's. So that's one thing. And I always talk about get a magic eraser. Let's just do those things.
Yeah.
Before you pick up all your kids' books, do those things. To me, you know,
I think that's fascinating. Just from a I don't know.
It shows you take care of your home,
yeah.
too,
I mean, livability. You're allowed to live in your own house.
Yes.
But if people are coming in, you're right. They're going to look at the
Yes.
they're going to look at the fingerprints.
The other thing when we talk about that is, if anyone came in my house right now, is people are going to open drawers and doors and closets.
That's right. The drawers, huh?
Yeah.
That's not awkward at all.
Yeah. So, they want to see if your kitchen cabinets, clothes
They
are
want to
lined
see how
up.
many of their shirts are going to fit in my tiny little closet, for sure.
So, it's so funny. I had a recent seller, and I told him he had the sleeping with the enemy house, right? Because you remember, I opened his
Was
drawer.
everything
They
alphabetically
were beautiful,
organized?
and all the labels were turned correctly. And I was like, yikes.
So hopefully he really just thought about it for that moment.
I hope
maybe
so,
he doesn't
but
look like that all the time.
But
it's pretty impressive.
But
honestly.
it was. I was so impressed. Their pantry, all their snacks. I was like, whoa.
They spent a lot of time on Pinterest, I guess.
Right. So then I had to search the whole house for the junk drawer because I wanted to see. No, but really, people are going to open those up.
Yeah, that's
and so it's
interesting.
those kind of things. Back to those details that mean a lot more than
Right.
if your kid's got all their toys
Shoes
out,
and
or if you. Even if you left a cup in the sink, if the sink is clean, those kind of things. So it's stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think about as a homeowner, but for us going in houses constantly and listening to people and seeing what they notice, it's little things like that.
Right. Now, that's so interesting. And obviously, I know that's just one of the many things you're going to talk about in the workshop. So that's very helpful. So in thinking about why it's important for first-time home sellers, what makes your workshops different from other events that people might be asking about?
Sure. So I think how bespoke we're making it to the specific home seller and to the home, even though it's going to be at least the first part of it in a larger group setting. We're really giving them a plan of action, and we're trying to do our best to tailor it to their specific situation. Because one thing I think I've learned in this business is every home buyer, home seller, every deal, every transaction is different. They're all different. I feel like I've learned something new from every single one I've done. And so really taking that into account, that this is not a cookie cutter process or a one size fits all.
Sure.
And being able to tailor that to their specific needs, I think will be important.
Yeah. As a side note, I love that you're continuously educated as well in what you're learning from different home buyers. That's really cool. Like, what a neat kind of concept.
Yeah.
So, readers and listeners, if you're looking to learn more on how to join these workshops or reaching out to Stacey about homeownership questions, where can they reach you?
So they can call or text me anytime. I can make sure that you guys have my phone number, my email, my phone. Well, let me give you my email first. Stacey@tdporters.com. STACEY at T like Tom, D like dog, Porters with an S.com.
Got it. We'll list that on the website for sure, so you can see that. But it's great. So you can also follow along on their Facebook or Instagram, especially on details on how to register, because you don't want to miss that packet. I'm obsessed with this packet now, but that's going to be Roanoke Valley Living with Stacey Porter. So that's pretty exciting.
Yes.
Okay, one last bonus question for you. Okay. Where are you and your family living, playing, eating, doing in the region? What do you guys love to do when you're not selling houses or helping homeowners?
Oh my gosh. So, we live in the Salem area.
Okay.
Try to be as involved as we can with the Salem community. Our kids were very involved with
lots to do there.
School activities and things like that. We love to eat at River and Rail.
Mm-hmm.
Just enjoy that so much. We are on the Greenway a lot. My son and my husband play a lot of golf at Hidden Valley,
cool.
So they really enjoy that. So I love to be downtown. I love just the shopping and the atmosphere. I enjoy that a lot. Yeah.
That's great. Salem has a lot to do, and obviously you're all over the valley,
Yes.
so you're learning about all the cool
Yes.
places to hang out. So that's excellent.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to go over or cover or make sure listeners know about before we head out?
We're just so excited for the program. We haven't seen a lot like it out there, and we think it's really important. And the other piece of that is, we're taking the equity builders part of this really seriously too. It's not the best time for everyone to sell their home, and we're going to be very honest about that. It's not just about a transaction. I think for us, and it's it has a lot to do with our community. I feel very strongly that I'm not in the real estate business. I'm in the people business. I grew up here. I love this community. I love living here and supporting our area. And so it's not about getting home sales. It's about helping others achieve their goals, whether it's through selling their house and buying a new one, through, they might become accidental landlords, or it might be a better idea to do these things first. So we're really exploring all of that. It's not just about a sale to us.
Right. Well, what you're doing is so important because it's not just about helping people buy and sell homes. You're creating community. You're helping economic development. I mean, there's a whole lot of things that your role plays into. So that's really exciting. So thanks for helping the citizens. And the workshop is going to be super exciting for people.
Thank you.
I'm going to come get my packet soon. So.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much to Realtor Stacey Porter for her time today and for sharing her insights on our region's real estate market, tips, and so much more. Thank you so much for being on the show with us today.
Absolutely.
Really can't wait for the workshops. I know it's going to go so well. So thank you for offering that to our citizens. We really appreciate that. If you would like to work with Stacey as you buy and sell a home or attend her very helpful workshops, you can learn more about her at staceyporter.exprealty.com or visit her Facebook page or Instagram at Roanoke Valley Living with Stacey Porter.